Dear students, today we will see the topic from module 3, that is arrays. Okay, we will see in detail about the topic called as arrays. So what is actually an array? Array is nothing but it is a derived data type that can be used for storing the values. It is a derived data type that can be used for storing the values, and those values of similar type. So before starting discussion regarding these arrays, let us see what is actually a variable. For example, if you are having a variable x, if it is declared as integer type, so we'll be knowing how we can use an integer variable x. So what is actually happening with this variable x? So what is happening is, there behind the screen or within the system we'll be having a single memory location will be created for storing the value of x. Only a single memory location, and this location can hold only the values that is based on the declaration of the variable x. So here x is an integer variable, so automatically this memory can hold only an integer value. For example, now I am placing a value 5. So this is the normal case of an integer variable. So x or a or y or I or j, all these are single variables where we can hold a single value under a single memory location. Now how we are accessing these variables, how we are reading these values? We are doing scan of %d ampersand x. For example, ampersand x. What is this ampersand x? Ampersand x means it actually referred to the address where the value of x is to be stored. Assume this address is like that, address will be selected randomly by the system. So I am writing an example. For example, if the address was 2000, it will allocate 2000 for storing the value of x. So we are reading a value from the keyboard, and that value will be stored into the address 2000. So that is happening with a variable. So every variable will be having a single memory location. Now after some time, if I am trying to assign a value, for example x is equal to sum 10, what will happen? The value, the existing value of the same address 2000, this value will be replaced by the new value that is called as 10. The 10 will be placed in this particular location. So at any particular moment we can hold or we can place only a single value within an integer or any single variable. So that is an introduction regarding a variable. Now assume that if you want to store a number of variables, for example, if you take marks, I need to store the marks of 100 students. Okay. Now for example, M1 is the mark of student 1. Similarly, M2, M3, M4, etc. up to M100. I need to declare 100 different variables, M1 up to M100. Now if I want to manipulate, if I want to calculate the total marks, I need to do an arithmetic operation from M1 up to M100, M1 plus M2 plus M3. So that processing, even for the user and also for the system, that is a very difficult task, because it will be a very complex program when we are using 100 different variables, getting different names, that is very difficult, identifying the names, that is difficult, then processing that, writing the operation, that is also difficult. So we cannot permit these type of declaration or usage of multiple number of variables or in a huge number of variables when we are dealing with multiple values. So in that particular situation, we are going for the concept called as arrays. Okay, now let us see what is actually an array. So an array is a mechanism that is used to store information, and they are storing the information in contiguous memory location. What is this contiguous memory location? Now assume that this is the memory location and different values are stored in contiguous, or we can simply say as continuous memory locations. So one value will be placed here, one mark, or some value will be placed here, some value will be placed here. Similarly, up to the maximum size of an array, we can hold the value. So it is a mechanism for storing the values in contiguous memory location. Why it is contiguous? First element, then comes next element. They are storing in the nearby location. So after storing one, the next element, then after this location, the next element. Similarly, the entire elements will be stored. Okay, so that is actually the real purpose of, or that is the mechanism used for storing an array in C. Now it can be accessed randomly. Any element can be accessed randomly. If this is the element that is to be accessed, I can access that. If this is the element that is to be accessed, that can also be done. Similarly, from any of these contiguous memory location, I can refer and access the member from that particular location. Now the third point is an array uses a concept called as indices, or simply we are calling it as index. Generally we are calling it as index. So every array will be having a set of indexes or indices. So what is this index? Let us see a sample representation of an array. Now this is the name of the array A, and under this array A we are storing some elements like 10, 20, 30, 40, and assume that this is of integer. This is of integer type. So we are storing integer A, an array with 4 different values, 10, 20, 30 and 40. All these are integer type. Now this is the memory location that I was mentioning before, the same thing, this thing. So if it is an array, as it is an array, it will be having the location identification. So normally in an array, the first location is given an index that is called as 0. Then similarly the next one, 1, next 2, next 3, up to the maximum size. Now you can see that this array consists of 4 elements. The size of array is 4. So while declaring the array, I will declare like int a of 4. This is the way how we are declaring the variable. Okay, so this array name will be giving 4 different locations. But look at this index, initial first index, you can see that here we are starting with 0, not with 1. Why it is so? Many of the other previous languages, that means before C, some of the languages they follows the starting index as 1, starting from 1, first index 1, 2, 3. But later there was a trend like the array index starts with 0. So most of the modern languages, they are following the concept like starting the index of array with 0, and the last index will be the size minus 1, because it is starting from 0. So 4 is the size of this array, but the index end with 3 starting from 0. So there will be 1 minus, 4 minus 1, that is 3. That is for any array. If the size of array is 20, the last index will be 19. If the size of array is 15, the last index will be 14. If the size of array is 5, the last index will be 4. Size minus 1. So contiguous memory location, we are storing different values of same type, and each location will be given an index, and through this index only in our program, so logic, we are trying to access these individual elements present in the array. Okay, so this is the array definition and the representation of an array in general. Now let us see what are the needs of array. Why we are going for an array concept. What are the needs? Now I have already mentioned about the major need is the usage of multiple number of variables like v1, v2, v3 or any other variables more number of times, it is very difficult to deal with all those variables. That's, of course, that is the reason why we are following the concept called as arrays. Okay, we will see the advantages just after studying the various ways of declaring arrays. Now let us see the various ways of declaring an array. There are three mechanisms given here. First one is just like a normal declaration, like the data type, the name of array, and the size of the array, and a semicolon. Just like we are declaring a normal variable int a semicolon. Now here we are declaring int a of 10 semicolon. That indicates a is an array which holds integer values and the maximum size permitted is 10. In this subscript, so this area is called as subscript, that gives the maximum size of the array. So this is actually a static declaration. So the size must be defined. Size must be given whenever we declare an array. We cannot later change the size of array, we cannot increase the size of array, we cannot decrease the size of array, we cannot do anything. So whenever we use an array, that must be declared statically. So all the variable declaration, all the array declaration within a function like a main function, all these are static. Once if it is declared, we cannot change the size of the array. So int a of 10, a is the name of the array. I will tell you one more thing, what is the importance of this name a. Now assume that this is the array and I am giving the name a, already I have mentioned, with size 10. So size, the remaining portions are there, assume we are having all those portions, indices 0, 1, 2, 3, etc, etc. So now a of 10, so 0, a of 0, a of 0, a of 0 is actually the representation of the first location, that is the 0th location. Then a of 1, a of 1 is the representation of the first location. Now a of 2 is the representation of the second location. Similarly, all the elements up to, if a of 10 is that, up to a of 9, a of 0 up to a of 9, we are having 10 different memory locations. Okay, so this is the way how we are representing individual memory locations of an array. Okay, now what is the array name? What is actually this array name? If you are trying to print, so once again I will tell one more thing, a of 0 is similar to x. X is a variable which can hold a single value. Similarly, a of 0 is a variable. A of 0 is a variable. It is part of an array. A of 0 is having a single memory location which can hold a single value. For example, 5. Okay. So only difference is under the same name a, we are having 10 memory locations are being allocated. Okay. Now the importance of the name a. In any array, the array name actually holds the base address of the array. That is very, very important. The base address of the array. What is this base address? Base address means this is the base address, the address of the first location. Now if I am trying to print of a, what will happen? Print of a percentage d. If I am trying to print a, what will happen? It will print an address. If the address is 2000, that value will be printed. Okay, so any array name, if it is a character array, if it is a number array or any type of array, the name of the array indicates the base address. It points to the starting address of the array. So it is actually called as internal pointer variable. It will be discussed later when we are studying about pointers, but just understand when we are dealing with the arrays and all, when we are simply using the array name, it is actually representing the pointer, or it is the address of the first location, that is called as the based address. Just remember that also, it will be required later. Okay, now a of 0 indicates one location, just like a variable we can have a value. A of 1 means another location, next location, there we can have a value. Now we can assign the value directly. A of 0 is equal to 10. After declaring this array, I can directly assign the value like A of 0 is equal to 10. I can write a statement, so 10 will be assigned here. Now A of 1 is equal to 5, I can give that value here. A of 2 is equal to some 6, that will be assigned here. That manually we can directly assign the values into the array. So that is not an issue, but if you are having some hundreds of data, direct assignment is a difficult task, because 100 times we need to assign value, but this is also possible. So just remember, I am mentioning all these while giving the syntax of an array declaration in this particular format. Now let us see the second format of declaring an array. Just listen carefully. The data type, array name, then an empty square bracket. Here we had a size, but here we are not having any value within this subscript. Then we are assigning is equal to, we are providing the initial values like 10, 20, 30, 40. So while declaring itself, we are initializing the value, just as we are doing with other variables. Int a is equal to 10. That is possible, right? Similarly, we are assigning the values of an array directly into the array. But here we are not, we don't need to specify this size. This is also possible. Now what is actually happening is, so here we require a semicolon. Now after the initialization, we can see that, so see this opening curly bracket and closing curly bracket. This is the way how we are initializing the values. If we are having more values, that is to be separated by comma. Now 4 values are there. Now accordingly, this size will be FISAT. So as I have mentioned before, the size must be FISAT during the declaration itself. Now here int a is equal to 10, 20, 30, 40. 4 values are there. So the size will be statically FISAT as 4. Later we cannot change the size of the array. Now this is just like int a of 4 is equal to 10, 20, 30, 40. But this is also a permitted way of initializing the values. Okay, so this is the second method. Now when we look at the third method, just look at the third method where int a of 6, the size given is 6 is equal to 10, 20, 30, 40. Now what is the difference when we compare these two? Here size is given, it is given as 6, but the number of elements present in this array is only 4, 10, 20, 30 and 40. What will happen now? Here there is a semicolon. So what will happen here? What will happen here? Now the 4 values, first value 10 will be stored here, 20 will be stored here, 30 will be stored here, then 40 will be stored here. Now the 2 more memory locations are already assigned statically, but these 2 are not given any value. So this will be automatically filled with 0. So statically, while declaration itself, we are giving the size of the array. So size is more, but the elements are less. The remaining portions will be filled with 0. So these are the 3 methods of declaring an array. Now let us see the other features of arrays. First, let us see the advantages of array. What are the advantages of array? The major advantages are like it can have random access to elements, that we have already seen. Any elements can be accessed randomly. I have already mentioned there in the definition itself. From any location, from this location or this location, this location, this location, I can access the element randomly. Now second important point, second advantage is it uses only less line of code. Now if you want to access 100 elements, I simply require a for loop. Within the for loop I can access all the elements by giving some iterator variable like I. For I equal to 0, I less than the maximum size I plus plus. Printf a of I. All the values will be printed. Scan of a of I. I need only 2 or 3 statements. So that is another important advantage of using arrays. Now third point is it can easily access the element. We can easily access the element. Randomly we can access, in the same time we can easily access the element. Directly by using the array name and index location, I can access the element. At any particular moment I can access any element from the array. Now next point is traversal. Traversal means what? Traversal means we can easily go from one location to another location. If I want to search an element, if I want to sort the elements present in array, I can do traversal by using simple loops from 0 to n-1 up to the maximum or last index. We can go or we can move from one location to another location easily by using simple codes. That is why the traversal will be easier. So we require only a single loop to traverse through the entire array. And next point is similar to this one, the sorting will become easier because we are having all the elements stored in continuous memory locations. So just have comparison between these elements, and with a few set of statements we can have the sorting of all these elements. So it also requires a very small set of code. We need to read an array, we need to sort the array, then we need to display the array. It requires only few set of code. So all these are the major advantages of using arrays. Now along with the advantages we will be having some disadvantages also when we are using an array. So what are those disadvantages? Let's just listen this carefully because arrays are having some problems also. First one is it is having fixed number of elements. So assume that we are thinking about the marks of 50 students, but later I require the marks of some 100 students. So later if I have already started working with this array, we cannot have a change. We cannot add or we cannot refer to some other number of elements in the array. So the size is fixed while declaration itself. Then I need to go through only those set of elements or up to that maximum only. That means we cannot alter the size of the array. Now next one is, that means also once again this will be that declaration. That declaration normally happens with the compile time itself. Second point is it is very difficult to do insertion and deletion. It is costly. It is given as costly. Why it is given as costly? Inserting and deleting is costly because now if I want to insert an element here in this particular location, the logic will be like I cannot directly place it here because already we are having some element here. For example, we are having some element here, so I cannot directly place it here, so 5 will be lost. So insertion means in between these two I need to add a value, not avoiding a value. So what I need to do, I need to move this element into this location, then move this element into this location, and this element into the next location. Okay, now this will be empty and the new value can be added into this location. For example, if it is 4, this 4 can be added here. But when we are dealing with this logic, see, that is a very costly task. Costly means it is a lengthy task because we need to move the elements from one location to another location. When compared to the normal array logic, this will be slightly costly. And deletion also. If I want to delete an element, for example, if you want to delete this element 5, what we need to do? I cannot simply delete this element, this location. So this element must come here, right? Similarly, if you are having some other element later, all those elements must be shifted into the previous location. So that is also a costly task. So the second disadvantage is the insertion as well as deletion of elements into the array is a costly task. Now third point is does not verify array index. What is an index? I have already mentioned what is an index. We are having various indices available in the array. So starting from 0. So we are representing a of, for example, see this example, I have declared a variable here. Int a of 3 is equal to 1, 2, 3. So 0th location, first location, second location, third location. So it is having int a, declaration is like int a of 3, 0, 1, 2, 3. So totally we are having 3. So this part is not belongs to this array. This is the size. Size is 3. So I have simply drawn this one. Now you will see that. Now 0, 1, 2, 3 is the size of array. 1, 2, 3, they are the elements belongs to the array. 1, 2, 3. Right? Now there is a statement just after that, printf %d a of 3. A of 3 means what? This is the size, but by mistake I have written a printf statement a of 3. Now a of 3 means it will try to access, this is a of 0, a of 1, a of 2, it will try to access this location. Right? Now what about the value of this location? What about the value of this location? We don't know, because we are having only 3 elements, that is already 1, 2, 3, and all the remaining values, they are having some garbage values, maybe some unknown value, maybe some mixture of characters, maybe some integer values, some unknown value will be available in all this situation. So it will be displaying a value. For example, a value is given like this is not the exact value. When you execute the same program, you will be getting a different value, because you will be having a different garbage value according to that is available within the array. So this is a problem. Now when we take another language called as Java and all, if we are declaring a variable with size 3, a of 3, that boundary is fixed, that index is fixed. If I am trying to access a of 3 like this one, that will never be permitted in Java. But in the case of C, the problem is this boundary checking is not being done. This boundary checking is not, so we are setting a value a of maximum size, but unknowingly if you are trying to access the other indexes, it will assign some value, some garbage value. Sometimes it may lead to a wrong result to the program. Sometimes it may be a wrong value that will be taken into the program. So sometimes that value we cannot predict, that depends on the memory. So we know only these 3 values, but we are accessing some other location that is out of boundary. This is the boundary of array because the size is 3. Now in C we cannot avoid this one, so that is why you can see that most of the C programming arrays are declared with a bigger size. For example, in the A of 20 or in the A of 30 or in the A of 100. In many textbooks they are giving like 50. In many textbooks they are giving like 100. So we will be having some maximum size set because unknowingly we don't try to access the outer boundary portion. So this is a very important point because many times it will happen unknowingly. But if anybody is familiar with Java, they are not having any issue, because if you are writing a statement like this one, the Java will produce an error. But in C there won't be any error, it will take this value. So we cannot do anything on that. So this boundary checking is not being done, so that is given as a drawback of using arrays. So the major drawbacks are the size to be fixed, we cannot change that. Insertion deletion is difficult, it is costlier. Then boundary checking or index verification is not being done in C language. So these are the disadvantages of using arrays. Now, so these are the introductory part. These are the basics regarding the arrays. So what is the difference between what is an array, what is the difference between an array and a normal variable, what type of values can be available that can be placed inside an array, how we can declare an array, how many values can be assigned, how we can initialize an array. Now what is the meaning of array name, what is the content of array name, that is the address of the the base address of the array, that is actually held by the array name. It is with other types of array also, like a float array or character array or any other type of array. The same thing will happen. The base address will be available with the array name. So that is all about the introduction regarding. So we have already also seen the advantages and disadvantages of using array with some simple examples. So that is all about the basics of arrays in C. Thank you.